Forget what time zone I'm in. Thanks for coming. Please, people standing at the door, come on in. This is going to be a great session. Thanks for joining me, everybody. My name's Teresa Regley. I'll tell you a little bit about my company in a second. Here's my 411. That's kind of an arcane way of saying it, but that's my info there. If you want to tweet about what I'm saying, feel free to do so. There's my email address. And I'm here to talk about selecting the right video management technology. So are you all in the market to buy video management technology? Some of you? All right, good. All right, that's good. Then you came to the right place. Even if you aren't in the market to buy, this will hopefully give you some illuminating information about sort of the different markets that are out there. I've been to a few sessions this morning where everybody just talks about video management. And the reality is there's many segments of video management, right? So I'm going to talk about those different markets, and hopefully that'll help you kind of organize what you're... Uh-oh, that's not a good sign. It's making a silly noise, even though it worked 2 minutes ago. Let's see. I might have to stand at the podium. That would really be a bummer. All right, let's see. Blah. Nope, I guess it's not going to work for me, even though it worked 5 minutes ago. All right, well, here we go. Here's a map. This map is a little bit tough to see, and I meant to bring some printouts, but if you'd like a copy of it, I'm happy to supply a copy if you give me your card, or you can take my card and send me an email. This is a subway map that's actually specifically sort of modeled after the London tube stations, and the idea here is to give you a visualization of about 200 different vendors that manage different sorts of content, not necessarily just video, okay? So RealStory Group is primarily a research company, and what we do is we compare products, specifically kind of like consumer reports. So many of you are probably familiar with consumer reports. We looked at consumer reports and we said, wow, no one's actually doing that for the technology industry. So we have a team of analysts that looks at specific technology markets. We do consumer-based research to find out what actually makes sense as far as buying a certain type of technology for a certain situation or a certain use case. And then we very specifically point companies in the right direction and give them the information they need to make the right decision. And so these are the 8 markets we cover. And I would say about half of all the vendors on this map say that they manage video in one form or another. And manage is a very loose word, right? Some of them will just allow you to store video and maybe put some metadata around it, but it doesn't actually allow you to do anything meaningful with that video. Whereas others actually allow you to contain the video, put metadata around the video, stream the video, take clips of the video, do all kinds of cool stuff with the video. So I'm going to show you different sort of permutations of that. So as I mentioned, if you'd like a copy of this map, I could talk about this map for a long time, but we have limited time. Just feel free, I'll be happy to send it to you, and then you have a real view sort of list of all these different vendors out there that fancy themselves to be video management or content management tools. Ah, now the clicker works, awesome. Okay, that's what you do when you just unplug the USB and plug it back in. Okay, so this is a way of sort of looking at customer experience. And before I start to talk about the different markets that are out there for video, I'd like to talk specifically about what are we trying to accomplish for the consumer, okay? So this is a reference model, and we at RealStory Group as researchers, we're often trying to put technology in the context of a broader experience. So you probably all work for organizations that need to supply video to consumers. Okay, so if we put consumers at the middle of this equation, we can actually start to understand what we need video technology for. So I always say, before you invite vendors into your company and they start giving you fancy demos and they start putting big fat numbers in front of you and you start signing contracts, first, understand what is this video for, right? What is the purpose? What is the use case for this video? So this reference model, and for those of you taking a picture, I'm also happy to send this to you, puts consumers at the center. Generally, consumers, they want to do certain things. They want to discover, they want to transact with you, they want to discover what you have to offer, right? They want to conduct transactions, and then they want to have a sort of a feeling of belonging. Whether this is a brand that has something to do with me. You know, I belong to this brand and this brand speaks to me. They generally might use video to learn more about a product before they buy it, right? To discover details about a product. There's all these things around here that are probably a little bit difficult for you to see if you're in the back that have to do with getting updates about information, that have to do with searching for information, that have to do with personalizing information, perusing images, being able to interact with customer service. All of these sorts of experiential things video can support in one way or another. And then there's different technologies that might manage that. So the gray circle represents the different technologies that would help consumers undertake these tasks. And then around the outside, you have a set of sort of enterprise services that would interact with video, hosting, streaming, et cetera, in order to, again, help the consumer do all of these things. So I always say, if you're going to pick a video management solution, and you're going to buy software, the first thing you have to do is understand, what am I trying to deliver to the consumer, and how? And what is that video facilitating? Because there are very specific tools on the market today to do maybe just one of those things. Like there are video management solutions just for product e-commerce, and that's all they're really for, right? They allow you to do metadata around a product, and then they allow you to just maybe do 30-second snips of product 360 views, and that's it, right? Whereas there's other sorts of video management solutions that are supporting marketing, right? Very specifically campaigns, right? That maybe you have something that's in a video, and then it allows you to, or sorry, something that's in an email allows you to click in an email specifically to stream in a very small context, okay? So the point of showing you this is that video is about supporting a holistic customer experience. And you need to think about what different parts of the customer experience are going to have video, and then how are they going to be delivered to the consumer. And you can pretty much start to slice and dice the market based on those different points of the user journey. So think about your user journey for video, and then you can really start to think about how the market plays out. That's it. Okay. So enterprise video. So I'm going to talk about use cases. That was sort of my introduction into thinking about how you want to use video. What are the use cases? Core functionality for enterprise video software. What are the different pieces of it, and how does it work? And then I'll give you a little market overview as far as the different segments for enterprise video. Okay, first, video asset management scenarios. So as a research company, I mentioned we actually evaluated, last count, 243 vendors and a total of 348 products. Okay, so again, lots of choice, right? There's different use cases that these video management providers suit. So first, I'll talk about broadcast video. Broadcast video asset management. Who in here is sort of a traditional broadcaster or from a traditional broadcasting company? Anybody? Okay, just a couple. All right, so there's an entire market of technology vendors, and they are generally classified as media asset management tools, specifically for broadcast quality, HDTV, super HDTV sorts of resolution that's specifically for sort of the traditional broadcaster. And these tools are still, frankly, very focused on television broadcasting, okay? So I'll show you some examples of kind of how these look a little bit later. There's specific tools for feature-length television and cinema. So this is managing a lot of raw shoots, right? And you've got lots and lots of hours and hours or tens of thousands of hours in some cases of recordings that you want to actually use to create a full-length piece of cinema. Then we've got some very specific corporate video management solutions, and this tends to be a different market, which we'll call digital asset management or online video platforms, depending on whether you're talking about the storage or the streaming of them. Then we've got specific media modernization and archive vendors. So these tend to be vendors that provide both a service to scan and digitize all your ancient stuff. I have a client right now that's digitizing reel-to-reel, tapes and things like that, and then they actually provide a hosted platform once they scan and digitize everything for you to make that available to you. And then there's very specific vendors that will record very long judicial proceedings and court proceedings and things like that, and they will actually do a voice-to-text transcription, allow you to search within those proceedings. So this is big in the legal market and sort of government sorts of groups. Then you have a whole separate market around what's called unified communications or internal video asset management. So For those of you who were in the session this morning with the guys from Microsoft, Cisco, I can't remember the other vendors who were in there, but it was a very good panel. Some of them were talking about internal help desk sort of stuff, where they were trying to provide video help, both internally as well as externally. So one guy was from Microsoft, and he was talking about providing online video for people who are just trying to make stuff work, right? There's a whole separate sort of market for internal video consumption versus external video consumption, especially if you have a really big company. And then finally, the last segment of video management is really about marketing. Short snips of marketing video to support marketing campaigns and just sort of general enthusiasm among consumer audience. Okay? So I'm going to tell you who the vendors are in these different spaces in a minute, but the important point and the reason I sort of bring these up one by one is that, again, there's different vendors that cater to these specific scenarios. So you need to understand, what is my video for, what am I targeting, what's my use case, before you just buy something, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I used a couple of acronyms as I was going through those illustrations on the last slide. One of the acronyms I'll use is EVP, that's Enterprise Video Platform. Another one is MAM, Media Asset Management, and a third is OVP, Online Video Platform. So I'm sure, given this is a streaming media conference, many of you know these acronyms already. But do you actually know the functional difference among these different tools? A lot of people don't. They just say, I need a video management solution. So first, let's talk about EVP. This is Enterprise Video Platform or Unified Communications. This is the scenario where you have internal, the CEO has to do a town hall. You know, we need to provide e-learning internally for thousands of employees around the world, and we need to be consistent about it. What do these tools offer? They offer generally video conferencing. They often offer hardware. So it's both a hardware and a software buy at the same time. They allow you to do executive communication, town halls, as I mentioned, web conferencing, live events, etc. Very specific vendors in the space, both software and hardware. Generally, you got to buy it all at the same time. Then you have a MAM platform. So if you are the type of company that either produces a lot of media yourselves, or you are taking in a lot of media from third parties, people who are shooting video, whatever it might be, you might specifically need a MAM. Now, the issue with MAM vendors is that many of them, as I mentioned, are sort of old school, still geared towards managing raw stuff for television and haven't really moved into the TV Anywhere world rapidly enough, frankly. So this is where you have a video component. You can tag different segments of the video. You can manage different resolutions of video. You can reuse audio and video components within the system. And usually there's industry-specific functionality. So sports, for example, there's specific media asset management tools for sports channels to actually, for example, manage all the players in a team versus all the players in the other team. And then you can metadata tag every single segment of the game for whenever any player appears on the screen. And that way, at the end, you can create a segment of the star player who had, you know, the most goals, whatever. Okay, and then finally, online video platform. These are the ones that are oriented more towards the external use cases. So these are tools that allow you to have a video, often branded video streaming thing that allow you to stream your own video or a partner's video in a very branded, specific way that looks like your brand or your partner's brand or whatever you would like. Think of this as sort of the corporate YouTube, right? Where you don't have to put it on YouTube, you don't have to have the YouTube URL, you can have your own hosted platform that is on your own domain, and that allows you to do your own advertising and branding, content marketing, support e-commerce, and also allow you to take in user-generated or partner-generated media. So again, very different use cases, very different markets, also vastly different prices, right? So these tools typically start at about $500,000, okay? And your typical MAM implementation will cost you about $2 to $3 million, heavily customized, right? These tools, if you're talking about you know, a global company of, say, tens of thousands of employees and you're buying the hardware, you're talking $5 million and up. These, you can have these for about $900 a month, right? There's also ones that are open source and free. Okay, so vastly different use cases, vastly different prices. So understand what you're trying to do before you buy. I'll probably say that 5 more times before I wrap up. Okay, So let's talk about functionality. That should give you an idea of the use cases. You should be able to kind of segment yourself. If you said, hey, Teresa, I'm in all three of those boxes, then you probably need different solutions for those different purposes, okay? Core functionality. Okay, first, let's talk about what these tools do for those different use cases. So you get creation, you get management, and you get delivery, right? It's also important to kind of separate these because within those use cases that I talked about, there's even different tools to create, to manage, and then to deliver, right? Different layers of tools. Okay, so first is creation. I put creation in quotes because most of the tools that dub themselves video management, they're not actually letting you create the video. They're actually what they would say is ingesting the video or taking the video in, right? Usually you're creating the video using Premiere or Final Cut or Avid or whatever you're using. And then once it's done, these tools will actually take them in, right? So even though they say we have creation functionality, it's really about ingestion, taking the video in, and it's usually final. So the video asset management market is really about final assets more than it's about production. So that's another important separation to make. So you can ingest those videos in real time. So if you're doing a live stream, for example, and then you want to have that video in your system as soon as it's done, so then you can kind of push it out to other channels or put it on the Xbox like our keynote speaker was talking about this morning. You can do that in real time. You can put in a pre-recorded video, something that's already ingested or something that's user-generated. So these tools will allow you, if you're a big fan of something and I record a video, it'll allow a consumer to also upload as well. So that's different forms of creation. Then there's the actual management of these videos. So editing, that's not specifically sort of editing of the raw footage. It's more, I have a video already in the system. I'm in the marketing department, and I don't want to call the video guy to tell him, can you give me this 20-second clip? It just allows you within a web browser to take a clip and to convert it. So say you're watching a thumbnail, you want 10 seconds to 20 seconds, you can download it in a low resolution copy if you'd like. It allows you to do metadata, analytics on the tools, as well as, of course, they generally will provide APIs so you can integrate. And then finally, delivery. This is, this conference is very much focused on this side, right? It's the delivery side. So how do you deliver to multiple platforms? These tools will allow you to do multi-platform delivery by doing the proper transcoding. It'll provide often a branded video player of some kind. It'll cache. It'll often have their own CDN or have a CDN partner. And this is super important, right? Rights and security. It will allow you to control who accesses, how they can access, whether perhaps if it's a partner scenario, whether they can upload and provide video to you, assign metadata, all that kind of stuff. So this is pretty much the spectrum of functionality. This is usually accomplished with 2 to 5 products, okay? A lot of people, they just want to buy one thing and say, I want a one-stop shop sort of video management solution. But going back to what I talked about before, those different markets, OVP, MAM, and I can't remember the other one I was talking about. They're all different, EVP, exactly. They're different products, right? They're different segments of the market. So here's just an example of sort of illustrating this core functionality and the different pieces. And this is Screen 9. This is just a small Scandinavian video streaming provider. And you can see what, they're putting it in sort of the ingestion. Here's the creation over here. Here's the management here, and then here's the distribution here, and also, they're depicting a monetization piece, which I like, of course, as well, but it just gives you a sort of a visual depiction of what I was trying to show in the last slide. So one of the most important things, of course, in these tools is the transcoding piece. So one of the things that's really driven adoption, especially of what I'll call digital asset management tools, is people saying, well, I have an historic archive when we first started going digital of Flash or some other outdated format, and they say, I want to do en masse, a massive transformation of all these tools into something else. But it's also facilitating, the omni-channel or the multi-channel deployment of these videos, where I want to push a certain format to television networks. But now, especially if you're a traditional broadcaster, you want to deploy from a system and say, I want to do this format for when it's a iOS device, or I want to do this format when it's an Android device. And these systems are smart enough, and they can manage metadata at a level such that they can deploy variations on the video, not just based on iOS or Android, but also based on the actual size and the form factor of the device. The iPad 1 versus the iPad 2 versus the iPhone 6 Plus. You have slightly different potential approaches there. So these systems will adapt and deploy the video based on that as well. Okay, a little bit about OVPs. So as I mentioned, these are the bargains. These are sort of the bargains of this particular market. OVP specifically for hosting a player for you, streaming the video in some sort of branded way. They're mostly software as a service, so you're generally paying a monthly fee, and the monthly fee that you will pay is specifically based on the amount of storage that you have. It's not usually based on users. MAM systems and EVPs, they're usually charging you based on the number of users, number of installs, number of people who are accessing it. This is all based on the number of videos, or I should say the number of terabytes that you have under management. So you get a really nice sort of suite of end-to-end tools for video, hosting, encoding. As I mentioned, the skinnable video player. This is a big deal if you're in the business of sort of providing video content, and people might be subscribing to that content or paying you for regular access to that content. You don't want them to see the company that you're part of. You want them to see your brand and experience your brand. You don't want them to be getting YouTube links, etc. So you want to go this route. They're also providing really good analytics. This is how long the person watched the video. This is how many people watched the video. This is when they stopped. This is where they were located, all that kind of stuff. Syndication if you need to push the videos out to partners. And that whole interactive component that we saw this morning in the keynote, you can overlay ads that are clickable. You can bring people and link people to other parts of your site or experience. So as I mentioned, these start at just a few $100s a month, up to a few thousand based on volume. All right, this is MAM now, to talk a little bit about media asset management technologies. These are the heavy lifting systems that tend to manage both raw video, full-length cinema, very high-end broadcasts. This is directly from our research. So for every MAM system that we evaluate and every DAM system we evaluate, we actually give them a rating based on all these different sorts of features that they offer. These are all functional ratings for a particular vendor. So I talked about the creation and management piece, the assembly and delivery of assets, and then all the architecture and management services that come along. It's also important to look at vendors from the standpoint of, do they have a strategy? Do they have a solid roadmap? Do they actually have a plan in place to take you into the future, as well as their application? So I'll show you a few examples now of all these things I've been talking about. This is a DAM, so that's a digital asset management system. And I make this the key separation between DAM and MAM because DAMs are also really, really good at managing images. MAMs are all about managing video. So if you're in a corporate situation where maybe you're a little new to video and maybe streaming video or video is not your primary business, you probably should be looking at the market called digital asset management because it allows you to manage both images and brand assets as well as short form video. So I'd never recommend a DAM if you are a big broadcaster and you're managing lots of raw footage for sports or the news. That's MAM. Right, but DAM, if you're talking about short form advertising, 30-second video spots, all that stuff, there's about 50 kind of key vendors in this space, and then there's about another 100 that are sort of chump vendors in the space, but it's a growing market. Right, so this one in particular is called Atom, and they're a vendor that very SharePoint-y looking, right? So if you're a Microsoft person, the sort of user experience would be very familiar to you. And what you have here is just a video thumbnail here. So you can put a high-res video in here. It'll allow you to preview the thumbnail, stream the thumbnail, assign metadata to this. It allows you to even do some free-form description here. And then you've also got audio. So as it gets ingested, it'll create an audio file that corresponds to the video file, so you can manage both separately if you'd like. It also allows you to search and manage metadata in multiple languages. And then you can also create what's called packages. So for instance, if you're in the business of managing short snippets of episodic advertising or television or whatnot, you can create a string or a collection that allows you to distribute the collection as well as the individual video. So this is the kind of tool that starts around 200 to 300,000 based on sort of a typical enterprise deal. So it's a lower price point than the big expensive MAM systems. And if you're in a corporate video scenario versus a big school, big shot, broadcaster, you probably want to look in this direction. Here's an example where I have to walk up here and hit play. So another thing that's interesting about this particular market is that they've really catered to the creative world and being able to manage video clips on iPads or other sorts of tablets. So this is showing an image collection and sort of dragging and dropping into an iPad directory, but then what you'll see next is a video getting played, and this actually takes advantage of the multi-touch sort of functionality that you get from a tablet that frankly not a lot of video management technologies have yet, because they're still sort of moving into the HTML5 world. A lot of the vendors are behind on that. So that's just a quick example of being able to preview a video, being able to add metadata around a video on a tablet. So if you have some sort of simple review and approval workflows, that's a big advantage there. So those are DAMs, digital asset management systems. Then as we start to get more into the broadcast and cinema world, we get much more complicated sorts of systems. And this one is I'm going to show you managing a high-end video, if I can get it to play, which hopefully I can. Hold on. Right there. Okay. So I'm just going to have you watch and listen, and then there'll be a test. Look at what is happening in this video.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, give me a go-no-go for launch.
You know that Easter vacation trip we had planned for Acapulco?
Procedures.
Go.
Control.
Go flight.
There might be a slight change in destination.
Really?
Maybe say the moon.
Everyone back on Earth, a pleasant evening.
We got a wicked shimmy up here.
It's got to be instrumentation.
Great, we're going to skip right out of the atmosphere, and we're never going to get back.
Oh, we're looking at less than 15 minutes of
Failure. That can't happen. It's got
Atmosphere, and we're never going to get back.
Oh,
We don't have that much time.
Okay, what did you all see happen? Anybody? What was happening there? Say again? Buffering. Okay, yeah, there was some buffering. That's true. Anything from a functional perspective, sort of what does the video manager get out of it? Yep, so you had transcription-based. Yep, that was the words on the right-hand side. Anything else? Actor recognition, right? You had the facial recognition. Anybody see anything else? I'm going to play it one more time without sound, and I'll show you a couple other things that are happening. So this is a tool, and it's important to note, I don't sell software, I sell research, so I don't advocate any tool over another, and I believe me, I wouldn't be doing any advertisements here. This is just really as an illustrative example. This is a company that was acquired by HP called Autonomy that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. They acquired a tool called Virage Media Bin many years ago and have sort of incorporated all these things together. This is a tool that you can't touch for less than $500,000. So if you think it's cool, get the wallet out. So what you can see here is it's showing a storyboard here, clip by clip. So you can pick a certain keyframe if you'd like. You can take a clip from a keyframe. What's happening up there is they're typing in the word go, and it's finding all the derivations of the word go in the text. So it's highlighting gone, gotta, got, good, every version of go. If you click on a particular spot in the text, it takes you to the point in the video where the text is being spoken, right? So it takes you right there. The gentleman over here noticed the facial recognition. Autonomy was a British software company. Actually, for a period of time, it was the largest British software company. And one of the things that they were commissioned to do was to monitor all the television cameras in in the entire city of London. It is the most monitored city in the world in terms of cameras, and that was to find and sort of weed out criminals and terrorists that they were looking for. So a lot of money got invested by the UK government in this company specifically to do that. So this is the kind of technology where if all of your video is in a perfect, clear voice like Patrick Stewart, very articulate, the voice-to-text actually works quite well. That's an OEM of a tool called Nuance that I'm sure many of you have heard of. But all those components kind of coming together can create a pretty powerful way of managing video. You have to ingest it all in real time, though. So if you have tens of thousands of hours of video and you want it to work like that, it's very time-consuming to get that set up. But again, it's expensive, and you'll want to think about the ROI. The more expensive these tools get, really the harder it is to justify buying them unless you have a major revenue stream coming from your streaming video, right? So you're going to have to weigh that as well. Here's another example. This is showing collaborative markup. So what you have here is a video that got ingested. This is a short-form advertisement for a Listerine. And what you can do with this tool, which is called Concept Share, it's more of a workflow management tool than it is a MAM, so it's more on the DAM side of things. What you have here is the storyboard down here, clip by clip here, stopping at a particular point, and you're able to actually comment and collaborate. So I haven't even mentioned that yet. Some of these tools actually allow you to comment and collaborate on the video. It's kind of like those of you who are familiar with Avid Anywhere. But this is like a poor man's Avid Anywhere, really, where you have a hosted tool, you can ingest a short-form video, and you can comment over here. You can even put sticky notes and arrows and all that kind of stuff to facilitate collaboration. Here's another example. This is another sort of, this is a product that really stretches and straddles the DAM and MAM world. It's a tool called Media Beacon. And this is an example from a client of mine that I worked with for a number of years, Net-a-Porter. Anyone know Net-a-Porter? Usually there's some fashionable lady in the audience. We don't have a lot of ladies at this conference. Very sad. So Net-a-Porter is a very high-end fashion retailer. Okay, they're worth billions of dollars. They were just sold. The woman who's the CEO won Entrepreneur of the Year for the Financial Times in London. Anyway. So they sell very expensive Versace, Armani fashion wear online. And the CEO made a very wise decision. She said, I'm going to acquire a historic catalog of fashion video. And she created something called Net-a-Porter TV, which allowed people who are easily willing to spend $3,000 on a purse online to actually watch catwalk videos and model interviews and different sorts of designer interviews. So she acquired this catalog, and she had, her team had a bunch of interns from the London Fashion School come in and tag all these videos. Okay, so what you're seeing here is their interface for managing this video catalog that they invested in and that they now use to show off their products, basically, and to enhance their brand and to enhance also the brands of these fashion designers. And this is a really fascinating interface because what you typically tend to see is the thumbnail is usually just the first screen, right? And that's a big problem with some of these tools. They ingest the video and they always show the first screen. And of course, those of you who've worked in television and advertising know that usually the first screen is either black or it has a logo on it, right? And it's all the same. So this was very, very well done because you could see there's a series of thumbnails that allow you to really see what's in the video. And then you have all these, you have a tag cloud at the top, which was the full set of metadata. You could click on anything in that cloud and it would bring up the videos that are in that particular category so that a product manager could say, this is the video I want to highlight with the $3,000 Versace purse. And really empowered the brand managers and the product people who are putting together the product sites on the web to really do very powerful things. You've also got dates, location, and person. Simple metadata, but incredibly powerful metadata. And this was a really good example of how to manage that effectively. Okay, and then here's a sports one, and then I'll get into my last section. Hopefully have a couple minutes to take questions. This is a sports interface, and yes, they still kind of look this this old. So this is a typical media asset management system for sports. And unfortunately, these interfaces are not really, yet HTML5 web-oriented. They're all still thick clients that get installed on big terminals because you're doing very powerful editing. And this is the example I talked about before. We've got both soccer teams here with their different players, different jersey numbers. Segment by segment in the game, you can be tagging which player's on the screen, which player's involved in the play, so you can very quickly put together a segment at the end. That's a MAM, media asset management system. Okay, quick market overview. Hopefully those examples elucidated kind of the vast differences in these tools for you. So I already talked about the subway map. If you need a copy of it, let me know. I will be happy to supply it. I've got my cards here. So I'm going to talk, to sort of close, I'm going to talk about methodologies for selection. This is what we do at RealStory Group for 14 years. We've helped people pick technology on behalf of the buyer. It's all we do. We often call ourselves lie detectors. If I can be more blunt, we call ourselves bullshit detectors on behalf of our clients because we have so many technology salespeople who will say, yes, of course, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that for another $1 million or whatever it is, right? So we help companies pick technology in the most directive way possible. And the way we do that is we say you have to do it based on use case scenarios. So I'm circling back to the beginning of my presentation. Okay, understand what the intent of the video is, what you're going to be using it for, because video management technology caters to those different use cases. You don't want to buy the wrong tool just because you have a sales guy who's really slick and can tell you that their tool will do anything, right? So this is our methodology. And this is how we recommend you do it. So based on those scenarios, you should be able to come up with a short list. You should say, here's MAM vendors, that's what I need. Here's OVP vendors, because that's what I need. And you narrow down based on your scenarios. So thinking about those scenarios, understand what you want your consumer to do with the video and how you're going to use video in the enterprise. Then you need to think about technology. What kind of technology am I dealing with? Do I want to deal with? Are you a Microsoft shop? Do you like Java? Do you want open source? What kind of equation do you have? You don't want to be 100% dependent on your vendor. So you need to have an understanding of what your skill set is internally. Partner, have they worked with companies like yours before? Do they have use cases that actually are similar to your sort of scenario and your situation and your organization? Do you actually want to work with these people? Right? Meet the people you'll work with, not just the sales guys. And then finally, value. What's your real budget? How much do you have to spend? What realistically fits for you? There are various spectrums of spending that you could do here, and you want to understand that going in, because you don't want to get tempted by the Ferrari and then have to buy a Hyundai. Not that there's anything wrong with Hyundais. Okay. So just a few logos. I'll show you kind of who fits into these markets. Here's the internal EVP vendors, and I'm just doing a sampling here. There's a lot more than the ones I'm showing. But these are the ones that we focus on in our research. So this is the hardware or software, both usually, and mechanisms to integrate them together. Some are more software-centric, others sell you both. Right? This is the MAM and DAM market. This, of all the different markets that I've talked to you about today, this is what we specialize in at RealStory Group. We consider ourselves pretty much the most knowledgeable analysts in the world on this market. So if you'd like to talk to us about it, any questions about these guys, ask myself or my colleague Mark there, who's in the corner. And this is a growing market. It's expanding. The smaller vendors in this space used to be 2 to 3 million in revenue a year, and now they're in the tens of millions. And there's a definite bifurcation in cloud-based in this market versus on-premise. So if that's an important thing to you, you also want to consider that as part of your strategy. When you're selecting, do I want something cloud-oriented or do I want something on-premise? Because that's another very, very bifurcated way of looking at this market. I think I already mentioned that. There we go. Okay. Finally, OVPs. These are pretty much the sort of quote-unquote leading OVPs that are out there. There's more sort of every day. And I already talked about sort of functionally what they do and what they're all about. A few things that you'll want to think about when you're selecting, and I think most of these I've already mentioned, so I won't repeat myself. Yes, I've mentioned all those. I haven't talked much about mobile support, but these are all the factors when you're thinking about your use cases and you're thinking about how your video should work. define this. Don't ask the vendor. I always say a lot of people send out RFPs and they say, please describe the integration features of your software. I always say, tell them what you want to integrate. Tell them how you want to integrate. Tell them about your legacy systems. Don't just ask the question. Tell them. Tell them how you want it done. Here's some specific tips for selecting OVPs. Again, you'll want to define this, okay? Don't ask a vendor open-ended questions. I always say that's a big waste of time because they're going to have to spend so long replying to your RFP. If you tell them exactly how you would like it to work, how you want to ingest video, what you need to do from a management perspective, how you want to publish. If you're building a custom app for your company, that's very different from just, I want to stream video over the web, right? So be specific, and have them come to the table and show you specifically how they can fulfill your needs. Describe what kind of video player you want. Describe the levels of security that you need, especially if you're going towards the cloud, right? You want to be as specific as possible and have them show you rather than tell you that they can do it. Show, don't tell. Okay, when they come in for the demo, make sure you've got your team there. You want to be careful about canned demos. I always say provide them with some of your video, right? So then you can actually watch them all demonstrate with the same materials. And make sure you ask tough questions when you have them in the room rather than when they hand you the contract or mail you the contract and then they're not there. Finally, my last piece of advice is make sure you do a competitive proof of concept or a pilot before you buy. And a lot of people say, well, I don't really have the money to do that, I don't have the time to do that. And I say, if you pick the wrong system, it's going to be so much more expensive than the time you took to actually test it. Because demos can be very fancy, and as somebody who helps dozens of companies pick systems on a regular basis, I can tell you that often the company that's in second or third ends up winning once you get your hands on the system, right? And actually use it, or you test the integration points, you test the API, or you actually use it. You might have a very different experience. So make sure you do a competitive proof of concept before you sign on the dotted line. Licensing models vary wildly, so that's another thing you need to make sure as you negotiate, make sure you understand how the pricing works. And I am running out of time. So again, follow a risk reduction methodology as you go. And final thoughts. Remember, video is not all created equal. You can have very, very different sorts of systems based on your scenario. If you're not a broadcaster, you probably don't need a MAM. You might just need an OVP or an EVP. Start small, short form, gradually scale up. And you want to make sure you address storage, transcoding, and other infrastructure issues head on at the beginning, and you'll make a better choice in the long run. That is my presentation. Thank you very much. I have 1 minute left. If you'd like a copy of this, just send an email right now. You can pull out your device, send it to events@realstorygroup.com. My colleague Alina will be happy to send you these slides. I can probably take one question. Yes? Yep. Yes, compared to the other markets, yeah. I mean, they can be very expensive. If you have thousands of terabytes of video, it can get very pricey. But in terms of, especially if you're in a corporate scenario and you just need to host some video on your website, it's a much better choice than. Yeah, so what's the business model? Volume. Yeah, volume. And I mean, it's the same for a lot of these providers now. Almost all, any marketing technology, I'll say, any marketing technology provider, they're all charging based on volume. And the assumption is that their growth and their revenue growth is all going to come from more campaigns, more emails being sent out, more video being hosted. It's just volume, volume, volume. And it's working because the volume's all going up. So, okay, I'm out of time. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your being here. Please grab a card if you'd like, and I'll be happy to connect with you wherever you'd like to connect. Cheers.